Hi, I'm Lisa Mason Ziegler, the author of Cool Flowers, and we're going through the virtual book study. Welcome to week 6, starting from seed. Before we dig in to starting from seed, just take note that down below this video there's a few options for you. One is that you can sign up to have the link dropped into your box each week as soon as it goes live. And I will tell you that if you haven't done that, this is the week to do it, because I've decided to do a bonus video, kind of addressing all the most frequently asked questions that we're hearing. And so we will be dropping that link into your box as soon as it goes live, so you don't want to miss that. You can also post your comments and questions down below, and we've just really enjoyed the whole conversation that's going on. It's inspiring people, and people are very excited, so I thank you for posting those questions. Also, there's a link down below if you haven't already picked up your copy of Cool Flowers. You can certainly do that, and all the vendors are listed there. And lastly, this book study has a special page on our website, thegardenersworkshop.com, and you can go to the Cool Flowers virtual book study and review any of the past weeks, share them with your friends, and we really appreciate it when you share it with your friends. We currently have people, of course, all across the U.S. We have Canada, Scotland, and England that have chimed in, so we're really excited about that. So we appreciate you all sharing, and we're just really overwhelmed by all of that. So this week is starting from seed, and I will tell you, in all my years of lecturing, seed starting is perhaps the most difficult mountain for some people to climb. It seems like that little teeny seed is so intimidating, and hopefully I am going to kind of clear the air for you this morning, because when you just follow a few basic rules, relax, and just do it, you can be a great seed starter too. But I just want to read a paragraph to you from Cool Flowers, because I really feel like if you focus in on this, it'll really bring you back to ground zero and to not get so caught up. So, I'm reading from page 80. Some plants prefer to have their seeds cast directly in the garden. Others should be started indoors and planted outside as a transplant. Still others are quite agreeable and can go either way. Start indoors or cast directly in the garden. Learning the best planting method for any particular seed is the first step to success. The seed variety you are planting determines how best to plant it. And I just want to highlight that, because I am often asked questions about having somebody struggling with a seed variety, starting it, and they're attempting to start it in the opposite way that it should be started. Of course, in Cool Flowers, we list for each flower that is featured, we list the best way to start it. So, for instance, let's just say Rudbeckia, Black-Eyed Susans. Black-Eyed Susans can be started indoors, or it can go out in the garden. It's one of those ones that can go either way. Whenever that's the case, when there's two options, I always list the option that I practice and prefer first. So if it says start indoors or cast in the garden, that means that I start them indoors. And why do I do that? It's simply easier and more successful when you start inside. We like walking out to the garden with a plant to plant whenever that is an option. We prefer that instead of planting a seed out in the garden. And as I go through and kind of take you through how to do each one of those and give you the highlights, you'll see it's just simply less labor intensive than to plant a transplant than it is to plant a seed. However, I believe that most people are under the impression that planting seeds out in the garden is easier, but nothing could be further from the truth. So, learning which way your particular variety wants to be planted is the first step to success. Secondly, if you want to grow hardy annuals, as well as most any off the beaten path variety of plant, you're going to have to start from seed. You will not find hardy annuals available for sale at your local garden center and nursery at the proper time that we now know you're supposed to plant them. So you're going to have to start from seed, okay? Don't be afraid. I will tell you that I would have been a flower farmer 2 years earlier than I started in 1998. I would have started earlier had I been able to start from seed. I was a total disaster until I just discovered some real ground rules to kind of follow that's really very simple, and we're going to go over those. So first I want to talk to you about that group of seeds that prefers to have their seed planted straight in the garden. And I'm going to tell you the ones that I plant straight in the garden. There's few of them. We only plant those seeds in the garden that basically are just totally impossible to start indoors for us in our environment. Those would be bells of Ireland, bupleurum, nigella, poppies. I'm leaving out one. And dill. So we definitely direct, and larkspur. Did I say larkspur? Those are the ones that we plant the seed straight out in the garden. And there's just a few steps that you can follow to make that more successful. But the number one thing I want to address is, this is a question I'm getting a lot, is do you plant seeds out in the garden 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost or last frost? Or are you planting the seeds so you have a plant in the garden at that time? So here's what I want you to think about. When you plant a seed 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost date, that allows that seed to sprout and to germinate and sprout and grow into a little baby plant. And when that's happening, it's becoming very well established. So when the frost comes, the winter comes, that little plant is already well established. So you're planting seeds directly in the garden 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost date. We'll talk about transplants when we get to that seed starting method in just a moment. So planting at the proper time is key. I counsel a lot of people that are planting way too early. It's just too hot and dry. So you want to plant in time for your seeds to have a little bit of warmth to germinate, but yet the nights are starting to get cooler, days are still warm, and then we're getting ready to go into winter. So Cool Flowers outlines the steps that you should actually follow, but I will tell you that the rules that we go by here is I prepare the bed and plant immediately before weed seeds can get a jump on my flower seeds that I am planting. I plant my rows now of, we have 36-inch beds. Used to be that I put 4 rows. You can easily fit 4 rows into a 36-inch bed. However, it makes weed maintenance a little more difficult when the rows are closer together. So in my older lazy years, we now only put 3 rows. That gives us more room to hoe more freely, which brings me to, if you plant today, if you planted seeds in the garden today, you should be weeding that garden with a stand-up hoe, pulling it throughout the garden, and it shows you in Cool Flowers, as well as there's a video on our website under the how-tos on how to hoe with the stand-up hoe that is simple and easy to use by running it throughout the bed once a week until the plants are big enough to mulch. Totally eliminates any weed problems, okay? That's the biggest complaint we have, is weed pressure. So prepare the soil, plant, water, and we always cover particularly seeds that have been just sown with a row cover. That helps germination. It keeps birds from getting your stuff. So all those steps are outlined, but weeding and not planting too early, or preventing weeds and not planting too early, are the keys to direct sowing. So let's move right along into starting transplants indoors. The method that I use, I selected years ago because of its home friendliness. I don't have greenhouses. I still don't have greenhouses. We have a grow room. Everything is done indoors. So when I discovered soil blocking all those years ago, it was like a dream come true for me, because I could use flat bottom trays with no drainage holes, which meant I can water anywhere in my home and not worry about runoff, which was a really, really big deal. So I'm just going to hold up some trays here and show you. These were sown 7 days ago. These are some actually warm season seedlings. This is coxcomb. This is how we start ours here on the farm. We obviously want more of a variety. This is 240 blocks of coxcomb, 7 days old. And then here is what the home garden version of that would be. This little tray just holds 40 blocks. And so you can see there's no drainage holes. You can water right in the side. Cool Flowers takes you completely through the transplant, how to do this, as well as there's a video clip on our website. So what I want you to take away from this today is that seed starting indoors can be simple and easy. Perhaps the other step in seed starting, whether you're sowing in the garden or starting in blocks that people struggle with, is whether to cover the seed with soil. Again, on the feature pages in Cool Flowers, we tell you whether or not to cover the seed. If it says do not cover, that means you firmly place the seed on the soil of on the surface of the soil, whether that's in the garden or on a soil block. If you cover a seed that should not be covered, that means that it's not going to get the light that it requires to germinate. So, make yourself a little cheat sheet if you have to. We have our books right near where my niece seed starts, and she goes and looks. I mean, we don't remember it either. You just have to go look it up. You can also put it on your seed packet if it's not already on there, but that's one of the things we try to provide on our seed packets is whether it prefers to be planted indoors or outdoors, and if the seed should be covered. So soil blocking tends to also cut time off of the growing time, about a third. So if a seed normally says takes 6 to 8 weeks to go to the garden, that means for us it's probably 4 to 6 weeks, because that's another common question I get. How far in advance does it take to start your seed to get it to the garden at the proper planting target date? Well, that depends on your growing environment. I typically have 2 groups of seed growing thoughts in my mind. I have those seeds that go to the garden when they're 3 weeks old, and I have those seeds that go to the garden when they're 6 weeks old. Almost all of the hardy annuals fall into the 6-week time frame for us, because I'd like just a little bit bigger transplant to go to the garden in the fall than I would say in the spring, because they're not going to do a lot of top growth after they get in the garden because they're going to go through winter. I'd like to have the nicer size. So my last frost date is November 15th. Our target planting date would then be mid-September to October 1st. Let's just say October 1st is typically when we get around to it. That means that weeds be starting snaps mid-August, which is right now for us. So that is what we'll be doing this week, is starting all of the hardy annuals that we're going to start transplants to plant out in the garden. The snaps, the Sweet William, and all of those types of plants. So when I plant that transplant October 1st in the bed next to the direct sown seeds that I'm planting October 1st, even though the seed is just a seed, they're both going to be growing and putting down roots and becoming established at the same time. So you literally plant both methods at the same time, and you get the end result once you go into winter. So I really hope this helps you, and I know this is going to generate a lot of questions. So post your questions. I will also, at the end of this book study, do another wrap-up video at the very end to address any questions. I am answering questions that you post online. I still have a couple that I haven't, but in general, I'm getting to them fairly quickly. So please continue to post those. And I appreciate you being here with us today. Next week is week 7, how to incorporate hardy annuals into your garden, whether it's for a cutting garden or into your landscape or in your vegetable garden. So that'll all be, we'll talk about all that, how you can kind of get it all together in there. And one of the great points is talk about how to put those reseeding, those flowers that replant themselves every year, kind of in a group together to manage them, particularly in a home garden situation. So this week, if I was a flower farmer, I'm going to have to look because I would realize just how economical it is to start from seed. I know that there's a lot of you ordering plugs, and I too order plugs of a couple of things that are really long growing, fussy things to start. But seed starting can really be economical. So this soil blocking can really fill that niche for you if you're struggling. And if I was a home gardener, I would realize just how space savvy soil blocking can be. This is 40 plants on this little teeny tray here. And you can, in a space on the top of a clothes dryer, fit 160 seedlings. So you can really start seeds indoors in a small space. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you back next week right here. And don't forget to sign up for the email for the bonus video. Have a good one.